Alright, so before I was even using TikTok like at all, I was warned not to go on there. I was specifically warned, do not, as a witch, use TikTok. There is so much misinformation and bad stuff on there. But I had a friend who is another occultist who wanted me to join, and there was this one thing that we both bonded over that was on TikTok for a while, so I was using it. This was a while ago. This was a long while ago, that this story takes place. And then I have a video on my YouTube channel. I think it's still public. That is essentially me having an autistic meltdown, or like breaking down because I'm like shocked, like in shock because of being like cyberbullied through someone's live, that I had thought the person who was cyberbullying me was my friend. And then because I knew something that no one else in that live had known about, like I knew about the racist history of Madame Blavatsky and how she put in her writing that she believed that black people don't have the divine spark, which is a term she made up for soul. And people were like, oh, well, she liked Egyptians, so she couldn't have been racist. She traveled the world. She went to India and she went to Egypt, so she couldn't have been a racist or white supremacist. So I had called Madame Blavatsky a white supremacist. My evidence for this is just look at her own writing. This is like a pretty well-known thing, I feel like, if people are actually paying attention and honest. But a lot of people don't want to be fucking honest. So I called her a white supremacist because this 1800s occultist, and as far as I'm fucking concerned, if you make up a term for soul and then say that that a group of people don't have that term you made up for soul, yeah, you're a fucking racist and white supremacist. That isn't even my only issue with that. But like, you know, essentially, like, no one even listened to me long enough to hear my source for that, which was coming from her own writing, but was also coming from, there's a famous occult historian here on YouTube called Angela Puka, who has talked about the racism of Madame Blavatsky and has talked about how it ties into fascism. And, you know, that was my primary source for the claim that Madame Blavatsky is a white supremacist, is listening to what Angela Puka has said as a scholar who is like a college level educator, right? And so I was in this like TikTok live or whatever, and this guy, like, who I had thought was my friend, it was another theistic Satanist, essentially just like there was a misunderstanding between me and some other person, and he weaponized the misunderstanding essentially to demonize me to everyone and to tell everyone that I am this violent, dangerous threat to the occult and to theistic Satanism for saying that an 1800s occultist is a white supremacist. So because I was honest, and because I said that an 1800s occultist, in my opinion, is a white supremacist, I stand by that. I stand by what I said. But it didn't matter, right? Me saying that was actually more controversial in that moment than actually promoting racism or anything. Like, me just calling a dead white woman from the 1800s a racist was more controversial than being, if I had just been fucking racist. And what I kind of realize is, like, if these people are so fiercely defending this when they don't know anything about this, I don't fucking belong here. And I realized I really, really should have listened to those warnings that I got about TikTok that was like, do not use TikTok if you are a witch. It is full to the brim of like narcissists and people who are taking advantage of people and con artists and all this other crap. But I thought, you know, that's everywhere online. Everywhere online has like occult con artists, right? People have used the imagery of the occult to con people for fucking forever. People have used spirituality to get away with abusing people for forever. I didn't think it was like uniquely bad compared to other social medias, but now I really do think it is like uniquely bad on TikTok. Just like there's so much bullshit, but like that was really like, to me, I was just like, the fact that no one in that moment defended me. There was one person actually who defended me. There was one person who, after I did, because like it was like a 2-day long thing, a 2-day long incident, because there was like 2 live streams that had happened where this guy who I really had thought was my friend just like completely turned on me. Yeah, I'm not gonna like use any names, but I was part of a small group of at the time friends. But yeah, obviously, like, I haven't been friends with any of these people for quite some time. But it's like, it's really painful when you think someone is your friend and they show you how little you mean anything to them. It's painful when you think you found someone who gets you, and they show you that you mean nothing to them. And that's essentially what had happened. It's far from the first time that's happened. Uh, Essentially, though, it was funny because later that same theistic Satanist had his entire image destroyed. He had built like a community, and the whole thing was destroyed because everyone saw, well, everyone who is fucking honest saw through his act, essentially. Like, he continued to do things that essentially the community he'd created entirely turned against him, and then he just became like no one who I knew anyways gave a shit about him anymore. But it was like, it was wild at the time because like I'd talked to this guy so many fucking times. I thought he was my friend, like he was someone I was DMing with and like messaging with, and like he knew my in-person best friend and roommate. Like, it was just ridiculous. And then like the fact that I was treated so horrendously and had all this ableist crap he told me literally just for saying that I believe someone is racist. And it's like, I know I did the right thing and I would absolutely do it again because we need people willing to call out racism in the occult. There's honestly a major white supremacy and racism problem in the occult, and it's because when you get a bunch of fucking white spiritual people together, unfortunately, because of the fucking world and system we live in, like, people who have not honestly, authentically deprogrammed systemic racism are not necessarily going to see things in the same way. But it's also not your job as someone who does fucking see how things are to prove to someone that some fucking dead bitch from the 1800s is a racist. Like, I didn't deserve to be treated like subhuman and like shit just for saying something they didn't agree with. Like, it was fucking bullshit. But yeah, I'm just making this video to like vent because just something that came to mind, and like I'm kind of stressed out right now because I'm thinking about my life and like shit I want to do, and I'm thinking about how totalitarianism, lack of empathy, narcissism, sociopathy, and this fucking like capitalist patriarchal white supremacist bullshit fucking country makes it incredibly fucking difficult for people who are different from the status quo to get ahead in this life. It makes it incredibly fucking difficult for people who are fucking honest and historically literate to like get ahead in this life.